Welcome everyone to Three Guys, One Music. I am Jamie. I'm here with Mike and Grant. Well, how's it going,
Hello.
guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Simultaneous wave. We never wave, and we both wave.
Make sure everybody sees us.
Up in the
Sees
corner.
what we're up to. Yep.
Yes.
There you go. That's
I can
pretty
hold
good.
this for the entire show. if you'd like.
Surprise!
Clues,
Guess what
gonna
we're talking about
today? Yes.
Yeah.
This is our first episode of an album focus. So we're going to start with Moving Pictures today. And it's an important record for the three of us, I would say. Certainly for me.
This
I can
bothers
definitely
me.
say for me.
Gotta find a place for it.
Oh, yeah. Maybe a
How's
little
that?
bit. There you go. Great.
There
Here
you
we
go.
go.
Yeah.
That's
All
good.
I'll sit a little closer to you.
Right
I
on.
don't mind.
So, but we're going to talk what we've been listening to real quickly. We'll go through that and then we'll get to it. So, I will go first on what we've been listening to. We'll try to cut to the chase on this. I've been listening to Lou Reed's Transformer from 72.
Okay.
And I've been listening to Little Feat's the last record album, 75. I think that might be my favorite record.
It's a really good album.
I love that era just with a lot of stuff. I've been listening to Wilco's Sky Blue Sky. My really sort of almost my introduction to the band, although not really. I did see them live in 1995, and I bought AM, but I kind of fell out of favor with them. And then when Nels Klein got into the band, and Sky Blue Sky, I think, is still my favorite record. It's a great guitar record, and I love the songs on it. And I've been listening to Ramones' Rocket to Russia.
Oh, yeah.
Really enjoying that. That's what I've been listening to.
Cool.
Nice.
Pam, to the point.
That's right.
How about you guys?
I spent the day listening to Night Verses where I could. Some of it's a little heavy for a mixed crowd, but I listened to that at work today. Have you listened to them? I know you've heard the drummer, and how do you say his name? Eric Improda? Improda?
I believe that's how.
Where's the accent? I don't know, but Eric is.
I don't know.
Eric is an amazing drummer, an amazing showman, truly an artist in the real sense of the word. But Night Verses is really heavy, mostly instrumental. There's some songs that have vocalizations on it, and it's just it's really good. It's impressive if you want to hear some musicianship, some heavy metal musicianship.
Fitting as to what we're going to talk about today, musicianship.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well,
okay. We'll see where that goes.
And speaking of musicianship, I've been really concentrating this week. Several listens on Will Calhoun. He did a solo album. He's the drummer from Living Colour.
Yeah.
And he did a solo album celebrating Elvin Jones. That's the name of it. And that drumming is just I think that was from 16? I don't remember. But even listening to it again, I haven't listened to it in quite a while, and it's just it's just amazing. I mean, he's kind of trying to channel Elvin's approach a little with the, Elvin could be bombastic and unpredictable, but Will just takes it to another level, and it's just, and the songs are incredible as well. And it just something just as a musician, and if you're thinking about musicianship, that is an album to delve into, because that's, nothing much surprises after you've been playing a long, long time and you hear something and go, wait a damn minute, what did I just hear? And that's just nothing programmed, nothing quantized. Right. That's real drumming, It's like, what is he doing? I cannot figure this out in my head.
I like his drumming a lot, but I always think about the snare sound that he had on the Time's Up, and I like it as much as I do Peter Criss's snare sound during the 70s, which is not much.
Yeah, a lot of
something bothers me about it.
A lot of 80s and 90s. There was some good snare sounds, but
does he have that same kind of sound on the
it just sounds
tribute?
No.
Oh, good. Yeah, I agree. The Living Colour, I love him, but the production there does not do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
But,
it's a open drum sound.
Yeah.
It's not as high tuned as a traditional jazz kit,
Yeah.
but he's playing his kit. He's not playing a little, and no insult by little, but I'm just saying a little 4-piece kit like a traditional jazz kit.
Yeah.
He's still playing his kit with his multitude of cymbals, and he didn't have a giant kit drum wise, but this just I don't see how you could be a drummer and not be blown away by it. You know.
Cool.
What about the rest of the instruments? You like it?
Oh yes, it's
good.
top quality. Yeah, there's some songs that really get and like, wow, you can just you stop thinking about the drums and the whole thing comes over you. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
who else is on it? Anybody?
I
that
do.
You know?
I do not know. I just was listening to it from streaming it, and I didn't have anything in front of me. I have it on CD as well, but I didn't have the liner notes or anything. And it had been a long time since I listened to it. And then I was blown away again so much that I listened to it 3 or 4 times at least, and went back and rewound and really got into the.
Sounds like you liked it.
Yes, it's very amazing. So check it out if you're especially if you're a drummer.
I have to check that out. I like his drumming a lot. I like the drum sound and the production more on Vivid, their debut, much more than. But I like the songs better on Time's Up. I like that record a lot. That was my favorite record of 1990. That is a great Vernon Reid record, and I love the compositions on that record mostly. But the production and the drum sound, everything sounded more open and less compressed. Everything was better on Vivid, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For my taste. But all right, cool, man. I like it. I'll have to check that out because I would like to hear him in a great context because I just have a bad taste in my mouth about that one record. But all right, so we're going to talk about the record Moving Pictures. Released February 12th, 1981, I believe.
That sounds right.
We're going to talk just briefly as we can. We try not to spend too much time on it. How we got introduced to the band and what our memories are basically, and how that kind of fueled our appetite for music in general. And would one of you guys like to go first? Or
I'll give my 2 cents.
Okay.
This is from my record collection and probably says RCA Record Company on the back. Yeah, manufactured for RCA because I got it with the record club. I had heard Rush before. I'd heard them on the radio, but didn't really pay attention to who they were. Heard Working Man and Fly By Night, on rock radio, but I remember hearing about Moving Pictures over and over again from Casey Kasem. It hit the top 10. But
top 10.
Yes, but didn't really pay attention to Rush until I met Jamey. Jamey played Exit Stage Left for me, and I was blown away. And soon after I got that album, I got Moving Pictures, and I'd always leaned into. I wasn't really a big music fan until I think I discovered Rush. I was listening to, the Electric Light Orchestra was my favorite band at the time, but harmonies really impressed me. And the ones I heard that I really liked listening to was like Yes and the Moody Blues. So I was already interested in prog music, but when I heard this, it was so much heavier and just forceful, so intense, and I just loved it right away. There's something about the complexity and the depth of the music, just devoured it after that. And knowing you at the time, you encouraged that obsession, and
I was into them. I was
Grant,
really into
Grant
them
too. Yeah. The more people who like Rush, the more into Rush you get.
Yeah,
and not really knowing it at the time. It's only with retrospection that you kind of think about it or aware of it. But Rush were the band of our generation. Mm-hmm. We were the perfect age, and it was a high school band for people who knew music and were into musicianship, and it was still accessible. It wasn't too far off where you could. It just had all the elements. It was perfect timing for us and them, I think, for them to go to the next level.
I think it was probably the perfect introduction because the songs with
Yeah.
starting with Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures.
Yeah, shorter
The songs were shorter,
Yeah.
so it was more. Even though there were
Right.
the prog elements there, it was more accessible. And once I got into this, I could go and look at their back catalog, Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings, and get
Yeah.
into the weird time and the signatures and the extended song play.
Right. But just real briefly, was that at your house or my parents' house that
That was
I
at your
turned you
house.
on to? It was my house.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember this. This would have been in the warmer months prior to Signals coming out.
Mhm.
I vaguely remember this. I think I also played you Thin Lizzy's Thunder and Lightning, which I guess you weren't impressed with.
Maybe not at the time, but I'm a big
Yeah.
Thin Lizzy fan.
Yeah, that would have been the summer of 82.
Jamey,
Yeah.
don't take it personally. I've played many things for Michael back in the day, and he was like, meh. And now he was like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I pretend to discover it on my own. Grant,
Oh,
did you show that to me?
Yeah, don't we all? Yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Well, how about you, Grant? How do you remember getting introduced to the band?
I remember it well, very well. You remember Oakview Elementary School and the Hop In next door, little convenience store.
Man,
Was it a fast fare at the time?
I believe, yes, it was a fast fare, and then it changed to, I remember when it changed to Hop In.
My wife will argue with me about that, but I know it was a fast fare.
Yeah, it was a fast fare. When I was at the elementary school, it was a fast fare.
So that street you took to get to the local recreation center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Good memory. And
we both know that's true. No, I'm just kidding.
Walking up there one day, I was out of elementary school by then, but I'm just giving you and anyone listening who's local, shouting it out. Walking up there, riding skateboards up to the store one day, and Circus Magazine was a music magazine back in the day. I mean, y'all know this, but for anyone,
I loved it.
Yes,
I loved it.
That was a great magazine, and on the cover was a picture of Neil and the live kit from the Exit Stage Left tour. And as a young drummer, obviously I had heard Spirit of Radio and Closer to the Heart, things like that on the radio, Fly By Night. But I liked Rush, but I hadn't gotten into them yet. But anyway, I saw that drum kit and picked up the magazine. I was like, what is this? Of course, bought it. And then my mother was going up to Jerry's Records, and she said, did I want to go? And I said, yes, because I was going to find something with that drum kit on it, something with Rush. And went up there, got Moving Pictures. It was in the summertime. I do remember that. And then, of course, went right home and probably listened to it for 8 hours straight.
This was before Exit Stage Left came out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This was the summer of 81.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I just been saying the drum kit that was on
right.
But yeah, I remember being called to dinner, and I was like reluctantly to go to dinner. I was like still listening and trying to, had my drumsticks on the bed and seeing what was messing anyway. And but yeah, literally listened to that thing the rest of the afternoon and well into the night. And of course, then that's it. You're a Rush fan.
Yeah. I'm going to try to be brief about this. It's a little bit of a long story, but I can say this honestly and authentically. I am unaware of anybody in my little circle that listened to Rush prior to me. I didn't know anybody that listened to them. I totally got turned on to them by somebody else and then turned them on to other people because I was so passionate about it. But I didn't know anybody that listened to Rush. In February, actually, it was the day after Moving Pictures got released, unbeknownst to me. I was helping out at Jerry's Records, one of the 2 local record stores in the area. Super important to this individual. I worked there, helped out, straddled that legal line of helping out. But the guitar store across the hall, I was hanging out that night. Kirby Smith Whitley, Jerry Whitley. That store, super important. I was and had the best of both worlds right there. couple of guys came in, we got to talking. I was 13. Got to talking a little bit about the fastest guitar player in the world, the best guitar player. And I was like, oh, yeah? Well, that's Eddie Van Halen, man. You know, he goes, no, Alex Lifeson's the man. I was like, Alex Lifeson, who's that? And then he told me who these three guys were. I said, a poster at Marty's, the other record store in the area. And he goes, Permanent Waves. You got to buy Permanent Waves. You got to listen to Free Will. And I had access to this across the hall, got it that night, took it home and listened to it. And immediately, with no hesitation, which is not the case for me now, hardly ever, immediately I got it. I thought, this is fantastic. That was the first time in my life being a Kiss fan, Van Halen, all those bands, AC/DC, Ozzy. Ozzy hadn't come out yet. That's right. Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz hadn't been released in America yet. All the bands that you would know of, I thought that I was hip as a 13-year-old could be. And then I heard this and I thought immediately my taste changed and I just wanted all of it. I wanted more and more and more. And 2 days later, that Sunday, I got Moving Pictures. And I remember the Camera Eye actually making the biggest impact on me on that record at the time.
Yeah.
And I listened to it over and over and over. And over the course of the next several months, acquired more records, you know. And one of our classmates, I think, had let me borrow All the World's a Stage shortly after I got Moving Pictures, which is quite substantially different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't heard 2112, although the songs were on there, but to listen to them in that really raw form was very different, but I still loved it. It had its own thing. So anyway, over the course of the next year, I acquired all the records that have been released up to that point.
Same.
And I really, really got into them and tried to turn them on to as many people as I could because I thought this is good stuff, you know. And to me, not being a drummer, just being a guitar player, Alex made such an impression on me. And we can talk about that throughout the course of, you know, our discussion of the songs, but he is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. He's such an emotional guitar player. I think he's an emotional person, and it translates that into his playing. It just something about him I've tried to explain to other guitar players that maybe are not as big a fan of him. I was like, he's just so good because you feel what he's playing. He's passionate, and as a rock guitar player, I get it. It just resonated with me completely.
Yeah.
And just as a unit, those guys spoke the same language. And one of the only bands that I can think of that can make an on-time signature sound like it's not an on-time signature. It grooved and felt so natural. That's a talent. So
Yeah.
huge fan. Makes complete sense for us to make this our number one discussion of album focus. So here we go.
Yeah.
Well, Mike,
Here
I'm
we
going to let
go.
you take it from here.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the art on the album. It's so, I love the puns. It's so great. You've got moving pictures. You've got movers, moving pictures. Which way does it go? This way.
Yes.
Right. And then you've got these people. She's obviously touched by it. She's moved by the pictures. And then on the back, you've got someone making a moving picture of them moving pictures. And
you sign, man.
I don't know if I saw it. Hugh Simon was a great art director, is a great art director.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw it in concert or on a concert video, but I was shocked. I'm sure, like everybody, when
there actually is
I
footage
saw
of this.
I saw the film of them actually moving the pictures.
Yeah.
The film crew on the back is an actual film crew.
Yep.
And the front cover is a still from that film, which is so great. And the fact that no one knew that for so many years, you know, until we saw it on the screen behind them. I think that's just great. It's so much creativity just went into the album cover. It's such a great album cover. So I want to point that out. I know the song everybody's familiar with. If you're not familiar with Rush, you know the song that's on this album. the big definitive song. We're not going to talk about that first. We're going to get back to that. We're going to save that for last. You got to wait for it. So the second track on the album is Red Barchetta, a song about a car. It's you know,
is it about a car really?
It's about driving a car.
Is
the main character, basically.
A dystopian wasteland where the government controls everything.
I didn't understand what the lyrics were saying. What are you talking about? Alloy A car couldn't make it to the bridge. What, because it was 81 and they were still driving giant Chevy Caprices and the
Lincoln Continental,
the big Fury. So maybe, they've got the old 16-foot long police car. I didn't get that it was a future dystopian story, but anyway. For those who don't know, in Italian, a barchetta translates to little boat. It actually refers to a sports car without a roof, a convertible without a roof that you can put up. And I find it interesting that he would choose that car, a 50 Ferrari. But barchetta has a ring to it. When you're writing lyrics, you want a good word, colorful word to work with.
And lyrics very important in the band Rush.
Neil Peart is a great lyricist. I think when they started making more concise songs, he really shone then. He showed his maturity. Once he got to that point. And barchetta is just a fun little tale. But starting off with that those harmonics, that tritone introduction on the guitar. And I'd read somewhere someone asked Eddie, "Did you write this song?" He's like, "No." Everybody thinks he wrote that song because it's so in favor of the bass. The bass gets to play around so much inside the song. But he said he and Alex wrote it together. It's easy to get into because it's a 4/4 beat, and it's not really fast or frenetic until that one section, that middle section, which is it in 6/4? It feels like a 6/4 beat. It may be.
I have never analyzed it.
I don't know. I think it's a 6/4 section in the middle.
It's so cinematic. Everything about
it is really
so cinematic.
And that section, it reflects the lyric of the chase.
Yes.
How somebody's chasing me, I've got to get away, and there's consequences if I don't get away. And it's really.
And whenever you hear that noise, that sound right before Alex's guitar sound of his solo, it's like the car is speeding away.
Yeah, it's a great. Like you said, cinematic. It's a great reflection of the feeling they're trying to emulate. And the guitar solo is just. It just elaborates on that. They go back into 4/4, and you feel the push and pull, the sway of cars flying down the road.
Yeah,
it's easy to imagine that with those tunes. So that's a lot of fun.
It's a great song. It's such a great song. It worked live incredibly well. The live version on Exit Stage Left worked really, really well. And I saw them on the Exit Stage Left tour. I have a handful of memories. I did see Subdivisions in December of 1981, several months before it was released officially on Signals. But everything they did, they could really project it live. And that just sonically, I love that song. I love the performances. And even though I've said many, many times how lyrics are not incredibly important to me, in this context, they are. They are just so important. And I do know these lyrics. I could sing along to these songs. It just rhythmically makes sense to me how Geddy knew to put these words within the context of the melodies.
Yeah.
Being part of his brilliance. He really knew what would work and what would be easy for him to sing. And that's a talent in and of itself. But I do love the lyrics on this record. I really love the lyrics on this record. I think this is some of his strongest lyrics.
Yeah. The first, like I said, Michael was saying before, the more short form songs.
Yeah.
You have to. I can't remember who said the difference between prose and poetry, or writing novels and writing poems is in a novel. Obviously, you have much more words, and you can take your time to tell your story. Whereas in a poem, you have to put all the best words in the best order in the shortest amount possible to tell your story. And that's just like a song. You can't, if you got an 18-minute prog song, yes, you can take some time. But if you're trying to be more succinct and get more songs on an album, blah, 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 you gotta put the best foot forward every time,
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's the economy of words. And it's always the economy of words, I should say. When you're trying to write a lyric, sometimes a syllable makes a difference. Sometimes the word, if you change it for another word that means the same thing, it can change the meaning of the line. Sometimes if you're just telling a fun story, it's just the meter. And like I said, barchetta is a fun word. It's a good word that, has some good consonant sounds to it. So fun to say.
It sounds better than red sports car.
Yeah.
Barchetta. Yeah.
But yeah, it couldn't be a Maverick.
Yeah.
Too short.
or a Pinto.
Or a Pinto.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I can make Pinto work, but anyway. I love that Alex takes the lead, sets the tone, and then when Geddy's bass comes in, it's kind of playful, little start up here and then plunging into the song. And he really gets to play around a lot with the bass part.
Yeah,
complimenting the lyric
back up into the song at the beginning.
I just want to say briefly that Alex does for me at the time, I had not heard anybody do the things that he does within the song. They're not difficult, but they're very creative.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he constructs the guitar parts, that was my introduction basically to him between Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures. It is just a testament to how great he is and was at writing guitar parts that worked within the framework of the song, but they were not typical. He did so many creative things with arpeggio.
Well, that's the same thing.
Just so good.
All three of them. Neil played so many different things, but it didn't get in the way. And Geddy had so many runs and played it and sang at the same time, and it didn't conflict with what anybody else was doing. I mean,
why they are so great.
Mm-hmm.
Neil had a great time playing that song because there are so many things going. There's so many changes in that song, and so many opportunities to play a lot of drums. So that's. I think whatever instrument you choose to play when you're playing that song it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think I've seen him in interviews and written in video where he's admonished himself for writing that part because it's a workout just by the hi-hat alone,
Oh yeah.
Excellent song.
Yeah. What's next on the list? YYZ comes next. Am I correct? That's the next third track on the first side. YYZ being the call sign for Toronto International Airport in Morse code.
Back when albums had sides.
That's true.
So let's don't have sides anymore.
Let's just talk briefly how they heard this. They were recording the record. They were taking a break and they flew into Toronto International Airport. And Neil, I'm sure they had heard this thing many times. I guess they would have. I don't know how did they hear it? Was Alex was flying the plane.
Alex was flying the pilot.
Yeah. So he must have had it. Maybe that's why prior to that they wouldn't have heard it. He was flying them in
on the radio.
And so Neil said, "Oh man, that would be great to write. That rhythm would work." So him and Geddy worked up the song, I think, and then Alex came in and then did all these incredible parts.
Yeah.
That just are so international and mystic and just exotic.
Yeah.
And it just is brilliant when you really think about it. It really works within the context. You're on a plane, you're flying to another place. It totally makes sense. I didn't put that together. Yeah, I didn't put that together when I was young, but now it's just like, that is so smart.
Yeah.
And it just works. And it's just so good. It's just so good. All those parts are great. It's their greatest instrumental, most people would argue.
Yeah.
It's just really good.
Well, I think Alex had to travel in. He was traveling in from home. once a week to get to the studio. And while he was away, he was coming back. If I remember the story correctly, Neil said, "Hey, Geddy, let's warm up." And Geddy's like, "Hey, let's do this." And they messed around. And by the time Alex got there, they had a song. Can you imagine writing that song? Just, well, we're just goofing off. Hey, YYZ came out of this.
Sometimes that's the way to write. You know,
be weeks of
take your mind out of it and just
concentrating on that. It's just, it's amazing that they came up with that. But it's perfect when you think of when you realize it's named after the airport. You think, okay, that introduction is in Morse code, but once they jump into the main part of it, it's so fast and furious, and there's that chaos of rushing to your plane, maybe, again, evoking the feel of what it's about.
Right.
That and those parts back and forth, looking for your gate, looking for your luggage, getting to the plane is so chaotic and frantic sometimes. And then Alex comes in with that Eastern influence solo.
Yes.
Giving you the impression that you're off to somewhere exotic, like you said. It could be anywhere, and that's what used to be great about Flight.
Right.
But it's just it's a tremendous song, again, evoking what it's supposed to be about. But even if you don't know that idea, it is a tremendous song. The back and forth between the drums and the bass, the guitar, just kind of chugging along, complimenting it, changing it each phrase, but still right there, keeping time. So great example of their synchronicity, their ability to lock in with each other.
And even though it's instrumental on the Rush and Rio performance, the crowd is singing.
Oh yeah.
The melody. I mean, that's such a strong melody and such a familiar melody and such a fun song. They're singing along.
Wouldn't that be so distracting?
Yeah.
When you're playing such a complicated tune and the crowd sings along, it's like they're so enthusiastic. They have to sing along. They're bursting with energy that they have to join you. And that's pretty cool.
I think that it also served as a great platform for him to do his drum solo that tour.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the YYZ on Exit Stage Left is legendary. That solo is really put him in the position for the rest of his career as one of the best ever. That is truly one of the most listenable rock drum solos. It's so musical.
Yeah, it's not just mindless chopping or flashing or whatever.
It is really a composition within a composition. And I
honestly think, I think that's my favorite of his drum solos on that recording, Exit Stage Left.
It's really musical.
And even though he changed his solos a bit through the years, he still kept that core solo there, even though, he added, when he added his electronic kit behind him and added all these different sounds, he still kept that core solo, that's how good it was. And he was like, well, I can change it, but I don't want to get rid of it totally,
Yeah.
Well, as a guitar player, I can vividly remember listening to it and enjoying it and not being a drummer and not just wanting to skip it. I listened to it from top to bottom every time. I never thought about skipping. I mean, it wasn't easy to do that on an LP. You had to literally move the stylus. But I don't remember ever being, thinking that, oh, I don't want to listen to this. It was so musical and clearly a command of the instrument. Probably at that time, who else had those kind of chops? I mean, in the rock world, I mean, you had Bruford, you had, other people, but to have those two combinations of heavier guitars and chops, Neil, he was the man at that time.
Yeah.
And that's structured as well. He was so much more structured. He was probably the only one at the time that had a solo like that. And Neil was meticulous about his. Geddy and Alex would write the music.
Right.
And, he would work on his lyrics as what the music made him feel, or if he had an idea, and then Geddy would work on the melodies from the lyrics. And then when they, had more of the music that's when Neil would sit down and really go through and meticulously work on his drum parts. You know, it wasn't like, I mean, I know they did some stuff from jamming, but a lot of it was, you know,
Right.
dependent on what someone else had done, you know, so they really tried to make their parts fit what the other person, and that's what you're supposed to do. You know, you don't want to, unless you're doing counter melody and counter stuff like that, but you know, if you want it to fit, it's got to fit.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on something real quick before we move on, is that this record, I think that I'm right about this. This record was probably one of their easiest records to make. This came together. They did not intend on making this record. They recorded a bunch of live shows in the summer of 1980 on the Permanent Waves tour with the idea of doing the live record. And they just got this creative burst of energy and they decided to push forward. And this record came together so easily and naturally. And I think it's reflected on why this record is their greatest record. It's their most successful record. And most people would say this is their best record.
Yeah.
It was reflected on how good vibes were throughout this recording process and the whole construction of it. That's what I think. But it just feels good from top to bottom. This record worked. It just worked.
Yeah.
So I just want to say
super solid.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the next track. What do we have, kids?
Limelight.
Anybody want to guess? Is Limelight the next one?
Limelight is the next one.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was Vital Signs. See,
that's the last song.
You put me in charge, and I'm already screwing things up.
Vital Signs is the final track.
Because we started. It's because we're saving the first for last.
Yeah.
I
gotta get it out of the light there, out of the limelight. Limelight. If I remember correctly, I say this a lot because I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, Limelight came from a jam session.
I don't know this.
Just Alex and Geddy. And of course, they always recorded, which boys and girls, if you're just jamming, record everything. Because you may write the next Limelight. They were playing and Geddy said, wait, what's that? And Alex, of course, like you said, just plays from the heart, plays, whatever he's feeling. And he's like, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So Geddy had to rewind the tape and play it back for him.
Was that the opening riff?
And he's like, did I play that?
Did I do that?
Yeah, just fooling around, came up with that riff, man. And
such a hooky, just a great hook.
It's just, it's really hard to write a good riff now because it's all been done. And of course, this was many years ago, but what a great riff. What a unique guitar part to start with.
And it's uncharacteristic for them up to that point. I have to say, just real briefly, that during the summer of 80, when they were in Europe, they went to go see Alan Holdsworth. And he was using the amp that Alex used on Moving Pictures. And he had not used that amp prior to that.
It's that was the Marshall combo?
It's a Marshall combo. That has two distinct sounds on it. The rock side has that sound. If you plug into that amp, which I think that the model was Country Club, I think.
Yeah.
It sounds like Moving Pictures. So Alex didn't have to do much. It was just there. But it was more rocky and more overdriven than, even though, I don't know, you could argue that. But the sound that he used with Marshalls on 2112 and the debut record, they have a Marshall sound. This was the new Marshall sound. And this was a modern sound. It was truly stepping into a new era with the sound that he had in this record. It had more guts and I don't know. It just sounded different. It was different than Permanent Waves. That was, I know what amplifiers used on that record, and he didn't use this on that record. And this just sounds pure in some ways to me. And I don't know. I just love it. I love the fact that they went to this new sound, but it was all because he tried this new amp and it just inspired him to write these riffs. So,
well, who knows how it was actually recorded, because so many interviews I've read that they say, we put a bunch of microphones outside and we did this, and we put the amp outside and we recorded it this way.
Solo.
So it seems like back and forth. Was it? This was a song.
Solo. I have heard the solo was recorded outside. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. At least part of it.
there's a bit of experimentation going on there. But
And
yeah,
just real quickly, let's say
yes,
that was recorded at Le Studio in Morin Heights in Quebec,
yes,
about 3 hours from where I'm at. Um, Unfortunately, no longer, a studio. It's in, you
right.
know, shambles, I guess. If it even this, I don't even know if the building still stands anymore. But what a shame. That is sonically, in my opinion, the best Rush ever sounded, and that studio was part of it,
Yeah.
and it was just great. So
And that was their first digital recording. Is that right? Or was Permanent Waves digital? I think Moving Pictures was their first.
if it's, I don't know the answer to this, but I will say that if this is a digital recording, Terry Brown did such a phenomenal job because this record does not have that brittle
Mm,
sound that so many early digital recordings
Yeah.
have. Sounds analog to me.
yeah.
I don't know for sure if this was recorded with tape. I don't think this is digital, but I could be wrong about that.
It may have been master digital, but
I think this is on.
I think some part of it was digital.
I don't think
But
this was recorded digital.
nowadays you can go out and buy the latest and greatest gear, plug it in, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Back then, you buy the newest, latest, and greatest, and something's going to go wrong because it's brand new, and it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they had these problems with this this computerized mixing board, and
Yeah.
I'd read that for one song, it might have been Limelight, or no, maybe it was Tom Sawyer, but they each of them had their hands on the faders to mix their parts while they were mixing down because the computer was just going crazy. And the thing it was the temperature shift
Mm.
overnight
Oh,
would
wow.
Yeah.
affect the grounding of the wires there or something like that. But they
Oh,
had
wow.
the latest SSL board and everything, and it wasn't working like it's supposed to. So there's a lot of manual manipulation in recording this
I don't know
or
if they
mastering at
mixed
least.
this in at Trident like they did I know they mixed Hemispheres at Trident.
Yeah.
Which it was also recorded at the same studio that A Farewell to Kings was, but it sounds 100% better to my ears,
Yeah.
being that it was mixed at Trident to me. And I think that they also mixed Permanent Waves at Trident. But
Yeah.
I'm curious if they mixed Moving Pictures there, if everything was done at La Studio.
It's
I guess
probably on the sleeve, but I
I
don't take it out.
don't I don't have any recollection of that being the case, but
Yeah.
it is such a great sounding recording.
It really
I
is. Yeah.
it just sounds so balanced. It just sounds so good.
But Limelight is a standout song for them. So very different, and not the only song that's so different on this album. And just the working environment, their own creativity, how they connected with each other. Who knows what it was? It's that special sauce I always talk about.
It's a rock song, but it's probably the poppiest song
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in 7/8, at least partly, if not all. It's in
Yeah.
7/8 time, and
Some's
that's
in 3/4, some's in 4/4.
yeah. But that's the great thing about Rush is being able to come up with a riff that you can play in odd time signatures, and you can still tap your feet to
Yeah.
the 4/4 beat throughout it.
This is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And it has to be said that All the World's a Stage that is included in the lyric. And as a
Mhm.
young man, that was cool to me to hear
Yeah.
them say that,
Self-reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
talking about the fact that is a fact of what the song's about. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable with strangers coming up to me and saying, "Hey, you're not a long lost friend. I don't know you." You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that's Neil's perspective. A very introverted person, which I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable for it's just not natural, when you're not an extrovert, to have people come up to
Yeah.
you.
and Neil
That
was so
made him
private.
very, very
Yeah.
private.
He didn't meet fans. He didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And this song, rhythmically, the lyrics, the way Getty put them, just works so incredibly well. It was just such a great partnership. I love
Yeah.
the lyrics to the song. It's really the most important part. But I have to say, Alex's guitar solo, and he's talked about this, how it's so lonely and yearning, whenever it comes in,
That's
was
what the songs,
unlike
yeah.
anything that he had recorded prior to that. This was,
Yeah.
and this is still one of his favorite solos and regarded as one of his best solos, and I agree with that. It's just so elastic and
that last note that goes on.
Yeah.
oh, it's so
That's
good.
so amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so good.
Well, the guitar solo tells a different version of the same story, and that's
Yeah.
what I like about it. When you really listen
Yeah.
to it, there's so many sections to it. It builds and swoops, and it's got all kinds of things going on. And
Yeah.
like Grant said, that last note that just wails like a banshee out into the distance, it's just perfect. But yeah, Rush at the time, that was their breakthrough album. That was their definitive album, and they had a loyal fan base for that, but they weren't as big as the Rolling Stones or whoever. But still, you have those people who, it's hard to deal with a stranger's adulation. Someone comes up to you and, oh, I love you. I'm like, I don't know who you are. So it's a weird thing. It's an awkward thing to imagine that. I know how it is. People do that to me all the time. No, really, it's just Grant does that to me. But that kind of thing is.
Mike.
Oh, you like that?
I should have worn mine. Sorry.
Yeah, that stranger adulation is a weird thing to deal with, and this song encapsulates that perfectly. It's a great explanation of where he is, and it's not what's the word I'm looking for? He's not upset about it, but it's I need my space.
Not
stating his case.
He's
stating his case for how he feels about things.
Yeah, I'm in the limelight, but that's not me. That's
right.
that's the show,
the fantasy that everyone imagines.
I had a sidebar. When you were talking about mixing, I had a problem. I had a flashback to a horror mixing story where it took 3 of us to run the faders properly, and everybody had timed cues because the track was a mess. And I had been playing not only drums and guitar and bass. I was wiped out, and I came in a bar early on my part I was supposed to do, and then we had to go back and do the whole thing over. And it was like a 9-minute song.
That sounds fun.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So anyway, that's my horror mixing story. When you have to come in at a certain time and you're so wiped out from being in the studio forever, you're just, oh yeah, here it is. Oh, it was perfect. I did it just, oh no, it's the wrong time.
The life of a do-it-yourselfer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why whenever you get to a certain stage, you need an outside voice.
Yeah,
instead of yours.
Oh yeah,
it's just too much to try to do that all yourself. Next track.
The next track in line would be The Camera Eye.
One of my favorites. Love it.
Interesting. The Camera Eye has a lot of interesting stuff going on, but honestly, I think it's the weakest song on the album. It just
really,
how dare you?
It really
musically
feels
for you.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like filler to me. But not that it's not. If that's the weakest link, it's pretty strong for what it is. But Camera Eye, inspired by New York City and London.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's the song that I can see where you're coming from. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
but it's more like old Rush because it's a longer song. It's got multiple longer parts, and it doesn't really fit. I mean, it fits where they put it in the tracks where you're listening. Right. Like if that had been first, no, or if it had been last, people would be like, but anyway, sorry. I was just thinking, I'm in semi agreement with you here.
Yeah. Well, it's like the opening before they get into the main riff. Like you're waiting for the light to change, and then here we go. We're off to, the busy streets of New York, which is, you feel the chaos in the music and the lyrics talking about, basically saying everyone just comes here for their big dreams. You've got big aspirations for New York, but you're also faced with the reality of what a big city is. Yeah. And they're two different things. There's that dichotomy that everyone deals with, I think, when you move to a city looking for success in whatever you're doing. So it's an interesting take on that kind of thing. It's not. Sometimes Neil seems to take the middle ground, saying, I understand your hopes and dreams, but this is a reality we all face, and that's something to recognize.
Sonically, I think this song is very strong.
Mhm.
Maybe substance wise, there's not as much there. I can see why you think it might be one of the weaker tracks, but sonically, I love it. I love when the band comes in toward the intro of the song. I mean, not the sound effects, but when the band comes in, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I love the acoustic that is used in this. It's one of the only tracks, if not the only, where there's acoustic on it. It mixed in under the electric. That made a big impression on me as a young man. And I love Alex's even though it's a very simple solo, it's so to the point and emotional. And I love the fact that he just pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And I love the riff. Don't. I mean, it really worked for me as a young man, and I never got bored with it. It really was one of the most important tracks for me early on. It just resonated with me for whatever reason. I love the other tracks.
I think my issue with the Camera Eye is maybe it doesn't have a middle section or anywhere where it really breathes. It's moving ahead the entire time. Even where that one little moment where you think you might have some breathing room, it just, you're bouncing back into it before it takes off again.
It's all the beginning. You're breathing into the song and then boom.
Yeah.
It's chaos of big cities.
But
it's like whenever you think it's going to break, you have that drum roll and then then it goes right back into the main riff.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah, kind of. But right in the middle, you have that same thing where it switches over and he starts talking about the history of London, walking around and knowing how old it is really historic and ancient. But anyway, back to Alex Lifeson's solo. It's very different than anything else on the solo on the album. I think it's more classic Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is definitely more classic.
And
it's got kind of
it's got different tones than anything else. I was listening to it today as a refresher, and I'm like, that's pretty unique. Even that's got his signature on it.
It sounds great though.
Yeah,
I just love I love how he played it. Maybe that's the best way to do it. I love how he plays. Period.
Yeah,
but everything he plays, he feels. And that's why I've always loved Alex. I've defended him for people to say his technique is not as good as this guy or that guy. I was like, but he's so passionate. He has so much emotion in his playing. I can feel what he plays. That's way more important.
I don't know. Yeah, the emotion is more important than the technique. Yeah. I've heard some people who are praised, endlessly, and their technique is not there and the emotion is not there for me. So you've got to have one or the other. If you have both, that's great.
Yeah.
But the emotion obviously is more important, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think so.
Anyways.
So that's Camera's Eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it more than you guys, but I think it's a great track. I think it's a great. I think it's a great opener for the second side. I will just say
I don't think it's the weak. I wouldn't say it's the weakest. It's just the most different. And the most like the previous Rush where it was, and they were still, it was in transition, so
it was a transition. That was like, absolutely,
throw it on here and the perfect, first song, second side, that's a perfect place for it.
Yeah. So the next song, Witch Hunt, known for not being played live until their Grace Under Pressure tour. When did they play that?
Yeah, they played it. I think it was the Grace Under Pressure tour. Yeah,
it's one of those songs that they put so many overdubs on that they didn't feel they could play it live because they couldn't play it as a 3-piece. When turns out they could. But
funny overdub story.
Yes,
hold your thought. As a young kid, new to music, new to drumming, new to everything, I did not realize that they multi-tracked stuff and that you could record stuff over stuff. Even though I'd heard it a million times in other songs and didn't think about it.
Didn't put it together.
So learning to play Witch Hunt, I learned to play it with the cowbell live between all the drum parts.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the way he played it.
That takes some concentration.
Yes. And I was it was just odd to me when someone said, that's an overdub. And it's like, what are you talking about? And they were like, you can't play it. And I would play it. And they're like, holy shit, you can play it. And it's like, yeah, you can. It's hard as hell, but you can play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize at the time. I just thought, when I heard two different parts, I thought it was two musicians playing, but I wouldn't have thought about this cowbell, because I've said, okay, you can play this cowbell. It's hard to do, but you can do it. It's very, especially for someone who'd only been playing a couple of years. And the drum parts aren't hard. They're just syncopated in the right place. And you got to get that cowbell right in there, and you have to do it. You can't hit it all with your main hand. Sometimes you have to be in the middle of the fill and hit it with your off hand, which is hard for a lot of new drummers. You got to learn how to use that weak hand. But anyway, that's my witch hunt story.
It's fun to learn it, though.
Yeah, and I didn't know when somebody said that's an overdub. I was like, "What's an overdub?"
Joe Walsh talked about this with the Beatles song and Your Birds Can Sing. He played that. They never were able to play that the way they played it on record. It was overdub. But he learned it, and he learned later. Oh, that's not how you played it in the studio. He learned it that way. So it's amazing that happens probably all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, how would you know?
Yeah,
it's there. I've got to learn it. I want to learn it, so I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah,
So,
but Witch Hunt, just like so many songs on this album, really evokes the message that they're trying to come across. That message of
very dark
fear and prejudice against whatever. That's always a contemporary idea. There's always people out there who fear something different. If it's strange and unfamiliar, then it must be dangerous for you, and you shouldn't have it. So, and it's hard to argue with that kind of fear, that phobia, when people are so set against something that they're not familiar with. And it's really conveyed very well in that song.
Yeah.
I personally want to just say that the guitar sound on this song is an extension of what he started using with the skank guitar on the reggae versions in Spirit of the Radio, but much improved and much more evolved, in my opinion. The Marshall that was used on this record allowed him to do a multitude of different tones. And I was super influenced by that sound that was used on Witch Hunt, because it's the same amp that he played on all the rest of the record, but it's different. It just worked for me. And I was so influenced by that. On this one record, you have so many guitar styles, sort of, maybe not really different styles, but different tones and different textures. Maybe that's a better word to use.
Yeah.
And it with the same amp. And that is about technique and touch. And that was super, super inspiring as a young man, a young musician. That's why this record is so good. The songs are great. The compositions, the lyrics are great. Performances are great, but there's so much more it's just like so much to draw from sonically. It is just a deep record. If you really want to dig into it, there's a lot there to enjoy.
Yeah.
So
whether it's in the lyrics or any of the instruments played on the album.
Yeah, I think this album
very deep,
is something for everyone, regardless if you're whatever your instrument is. If you don't care about the other instruments, that instrument is enough. Or someone who cares about it all, or someone who just cares about lyrics or melodies or whatever, it's all there.
Yeah.
Very good.
But
love this track.
Witch Hunt is a really fun song to play on drums. Once they get to the 4/4 beat and get to roll down all the drums, if you have that many drums. But one of the reasons they couldn't play it live was the overdubbing of the keyboards.
Yeah.
There are so many synth overdubs to make it bigger. There's not a lot of bass guitar in this song. There is a bass guitar solo at the end, but it's all about the stacking overdubbing of the keyboards. And I guess they could play it live because later on, technology now, my synthesizer, I could probably stack, 4 or 6 different pads on top of each other to make it really big. But back then you had to do it all manually. So, that's probably one of the reasons they didn't play it live, but fun song to listen to, fun song to play along to if you're a musician.
I love the guitar part in this song. It's really, really welcoming to me. I really think it works incredibly well. So I'm a big fan of the song. I always have liked.
Cool.
All right.
And I wonder, it's kind of got that Black Sabbath influence, from the opening
Mhm.
That will come up late. Yeah.
That sort of the
Yeah.
intro.
And
Yeah.
I'll bring that up again later
Very
on.
dark. Very dark.
But the next
Jingle
song,
bells.
the last song on the second side, am I correct in saying Vital Signs?
That is correct.
You are correct.
That is
I got
correct.
I am all
You are
over that.
correct, sir.
Vital Signs is interesting. Punk rock came along in the 70s. Really, it was the antithesis of progressive rock with its long, extravagant, complicated compositions.
Right.
Part of Rush's reaction to that was making more concise songs. But Vital Signs really stands out as not necessarily new wave or ska, reggae, whatever, but it has those influences in it. From the very beginning, it starts off with that sequence pattern, and then the end beat of the guitar where it comes in.
It's like a Police song.
Yeah,
it's very
Yeah,
Andy
kind of.
Summers influenced. Very
Yeah,
much so.
definitely. There's some there's a lot of that influence in there.
Yeah.
But
The
Vital
Fabulous
Signs,
Men.
yeah, a fun song to play along with.
Yeah.
And the bass following the sequencer. I think he did play. We didn't bring this up, but Geddy played half those songs with his trusty
Jazz.
Rickenbacker
Yep.
that he's known for, and that's when he picked up the Fender Jazz bass, which has a growling sound, not quite as
It's much more
grunty.
grunty.
Yeah, that's
how I think about it.
good way to describe it. Not quite as crystal clear as the Rickenbacker, not as clanky anyway. But on that song, he played the jazz bass, and I love when he gets to the second verse and follows along with the sequencer.
So meaty.
It's pretty cool. And it's got a danceability to the song where when the snare comes in.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say when the drums come in with that snare, the snare's kind of slight at first, like he's just tapping on the outside of the head.
Yeah.
And then when it comes in the second time, it's, full force. It's right there.
I just want to say he picked that bass up for $200 in Michigan back in probably 77 or 78. So he had that for a while, but never really used it. And he might have used it for some of Permanent Waves. I'm not certain about that, but certainly it made its big, kind of coming out party for moving pictures. And it just clearly is, I would say, as much as I love the jazz, this is Geddy's best bass sound he ever had for me.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it works incredibly well. It's just meatier.
Yeah.
It just works so incredibly well with the amps that he used at the time. And I never thought he had a better sound than he had during this period.
Yeah, it works really well on this album.
Very, very well.
Yeah. Vital Signs. I had a little note about the lyrics, but I don't know what I did with it. But anyway, just a fun song, a great album ender. It's got that danceability to it.
Yeah.
One thing in the video, do you remember the music video where Neil had a PZM mic taped to his chest, and we kind of laughed about that, like, because at the time Barney Clark was the first recipient of an artificial heart, and we made jokes about Neil Peart. That's his that's plugging into his artificial heart, but they actually used that and recorded with a PZM, a pressure zone microphone.
Yeah.
Which picks up pressure waves, not sound. I've tried to use one before. I've never had success with a PZM, but interesting that they recorded room tone.
Your heart's just
behind the drum. Yeah, my heart's not into it. My artificial heart's not into it. But yeah, they recorded the room tone with that while they played. So
well, do you think they just moved? They mixed it into the main sound. It's there, even if it's a.
Weren't they talking about the bass? They wanted that pressure from the Neil feels from this side, not from that side.
Yeah.
They don't mic the bass drum from the drummer's side.
I haven't heard any elaboration on that, but
I remember reading
it's pretty interesting
about that. Yeah.
But Vital Signs, just a fun tune about functions as important as form.
Yeah, and also
in the way you approach things.
Yeah, and the norm, kind of like, and it's in the lyric, what is following, what is acceptable and what is the norm.
Yeah.
I think that there's some, that's in the lyrics where,
And also that was a song about, the lyrics were about maybe that even song, because it didn't really fit again with it wasn't as rocky, it wasn't as grunty, it wasn't
that's our second pop song on the album.
Yeah,
this is the last song written for the record. This was one of those songs where, like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And unlike the next studio record, their first single was their last track written.
Yeah.
And that was a completely experiment that they were like, well, you got to fill up 2 minutes and 38 seconds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be their most successful single they ever had. But
Yeah.
that's another day.
Vital Signs, tempering your expectations. I guess that's what it's about. We can debate that.
Right.
Timbales.
Yes, the timbale hits. There's so many elements in there that aren't familiar to or weren't familiar to Rush fans at the time. That's what makes it outstanding. That they're willing to experiment and elaborate on what they're doing. They were not afraid to take a chance. Someone might not accept this because that's not who we are. Well, that's
it is who we are.
That's part of your creative process. That's who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we've talked about everything, right?
Except
the big one. Except the big one, the one they said that was the hardest to record.
The one that everyone knows.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what Alex had said once before. It was the most difficult to record. I think because it's such a direct song. It seems like the drums playing a 4/4 beat would be easy, but Neil has always said it's the hardest to play. And I think because there's the focus there's not really accents in the drum part. We're of course talking about Tom Sawyer, their seminal song, their defining song for people who don't even know Rush. They know
Tom Sawyer. Everyone that comes on and people start going crazy.
And again, that's the thing, that big E note, that big bomb that starts it off, that synthesizer chord, boom. Everyone, you hear that and you know what you're listening to. I was at a show. I'm going to compare it to Black Sabbath again, because I was at a show in Chapel Hill and, waiting for the band to come on. I love to tell this story. And they're playing music beforehand, and War Pigs comes on. And you can feel there's conversation going on. We got kind of quiet and some new murmuring started, and War Pigs come on and it's playing. And as soon as the vocals start out, the whole club is singing along to War Pigs because it's so iconic.
Yeah.
And Tom Sawyer's the same way. When you hear that big bass note drop, everyone lights up and they know what's coming, know, and, jump into that 4/4 beat, the spoken word introduction. It's a very different song, and Jesus, I have the worst time with my vocabulary on this podcast, but it's deceptively simple. When trying to play it, there's not a lot of fast notes in it until you get to the 7/8 section. This is one that we like to play when we got together at Chris's house in the summer, when I was young. I was just starting out, and we'd take turns playing bass and guitar and drums. We just circle around. Everybody play this song on a different instrument, but it takes some focus and some work to play this song. But it is unusual in its structure, because you just got these big notes that drop, for the chord changes, and there's not a lot of movement. But the movement is in
space.
The movement is in the space left for those chords to ring out, and all in the drums. And that 7/8 section, just it's so abstract, but moves forward so smoothly. And Alex Lifeson's guitar solo again, just amazing. Where does he get these ideas? Because it's a patchwork of different things.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm going to say briefly about the origin of the song. The lyricist for Max Webster, Pied Bois, he wrote these lyrics that inspired Neil, and I guess Neil took them and made it something else and said, I can do something with this. And once he had, the lyrics in whatever form it was, really the germ of the song was not the lyrics. It was that big note on the Oberheim that Getty hit during
Yeah.
sound check. And it just inspired them all. They knew that this was something. It could be something. And that was the origin, really musically, of the song. Now, there are YouTube clips of the pre-recorded. And when they used to do tours after when they were writing, before they would go into the studio, they would do these mini tours.
Yeah.
And they did this for years. And you can hear Tom Sawyer and Limelight both before the solos were written. He did completely different versions of them, and they're not nearly as good as what is on the record.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear them in those forms. The songs are almost completely the same, except for the solos.
Yeah.
The drum parts may be slightly different. It's been a while since I've listened to them, but the thing that Alex, I don't know if a lot of people know this, or maybe not everybody knows, but Getty is really the architect behind Alex's solos. He would always veto or say, and they would take multiple passes of solos and take bits and pieces and construct it to where it's musical. That happened with Limelight, and you can hear in Tom Sawyer where there's a part where he's really high up on the fretboard and then it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's really not possible. It has to be an edit, but it works completely.
Yeah.
It just works, but you can hear that. There's an Ace Frehley example in the song I Want You where you can hear that happens. It's just like, it's not possible to do it, but you can edit that, make it sound that way, but then they would try to learn it and do it their own way. But Alex played it exactly the way it is on the record.
Yeah.
All this time, and it's beautiful, but he didn't play it that way. It was never played that way. And just like Tom Sawyer, even though he mimics it in the studio, the videos that you see on Tom Sawyer and that they recorded after they did the record, they all did studio performances.
Yeah.
Videos during those sessions, but they were miming. Those solos were never recorded that way. So for those who don't know, that's a fact. So, but it's beautifully done. Getty did a great job of comping those solos, but those solos are comped, just for what it's worth.
Well, as far as the lyrics, I'm not familiar. I know Pi Dubois started the lyrics out. I don't know how much that's changed. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's perfectly Neil Peart, that confidence, that quiet confidence, that stoicism is not necessarily arrogance. He's not looking down on you, but he's confident in who he is.
Right.
And, he's living in the moment, but, change could come at any time. So there's a lot to absorb, and that's the lyrics.
Lessons for us all in these days.
It's just a great song, and they're, like I said, they're seminal song from that time.
Yeah, and just the drum outro.
Yeah,
legendary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's cemented along with YYZ, the live solo. That maybe even more so. It's so. How can you not air drum solo that when you hear it? It's just
that's
iconic.
Just it, man.
It's iconic.
At the concerts, you see people air drumming along to this song and that. Some people air drum through the whole thing, but so many more people will air drum to that breakdown in Tom Sawyer. It's just like, it's night and day from Phil Collins In the Air Tonight, but it's something people just have to play, play along to. It's a great composition in itself. Those 4 bars. I don't know how long it is. A drum solo.
Right. Legendary. Just legendary. Such a great opener. And we had to end this with the opener because it is so iconic.
Yeah, it's the most classic song off the album.
Yeah, this is the one that we really wanted to,
or the defining song. Let's say that.
Very defining. This whole record is defining. And this led to. This was the end to me, not a beginning. To me, this was the end of an era. And other people might view this as the beginning of an era. I don't view it this way. I feel like it's the next record is the beginning of a new era for me. So we'll talk about that in the future, maybe with that record.
Moving Pictures, the drums are so thought out in every song. The bass just growls through everything. You know, wandering in and out of Red Barchetta, so tight in YYZ, and just ethereal and ominous on Tom Sawyer. The guitar solos just brilliant. Every one stands alone and shows you the talent of Alex Lifeson. It's just a great example of everything they do.
And if I can just say that as putting the songs, the flow of the record, this record works as well as any record they ever had. It just works. There's thought that has to be put into these things. You know, like you said, Grant, you couldn't put Camera Eye at the opening track, number one, or at the very last. That would make no sense. There was thought put into all this for moods as you're going through listening to this record.
An experience of listening to it.
Yes. And that's what is lost today. We were one of the last generations to experience be able to put on a record and listen to it and get that whole experience. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was great.
Yeah.
I still do it.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy talking about this record. This is one of all of our favorites. Super important for us. Yeah. And I think this was fitting for us to have this as the first in our album focus. So I just want to say, Mike, I love that t-shirt, man.
Oh, thank you.
Where can I get one, man?
Oh, I can hook you up.
All right, man. It's a good looking t-shirt, man. All right. Thank you guys for checking in. We will see you next time. We'll have a traditional episode the next time, but we are going to continue this album focus. We look forward to more records and discussion. Thanks so much, everybody. Please like and subscribe. See you soon.
All right. Be well.